Today we'll continue our discussion on William Shakespeare's Othello. Today we'll continue our discussion on William Shakespeare's Othello by looking at the storyline and then taking the play act by act and then reading along as we discuss the story. So, William Shakespeare's Othello is a tragedy. William Shakespeare's Othello is a tragedy. As we saw yesterday, it obeys or most of the classical conventions on tragedy. It is the story of the eponymous hero, Othello. Othello is an eponymous hero because his name is the same as the title of the text. Othello is an eponymous hero because his name is the same as the title of the text. So Othello is the tragic hero. Othello is the tragic hero. He is highly placed. He is highly placed in the Venetian society. He is well respected as a soldier, as a brave and courageous soldier. He is highly respected. He marries the daughter of a senator by name Desdemona under strange circumstances, because the marriage takes place in secret. Probably because the man is afraid, Othello is afraid, the daughter is afraid the father will not give consent for her to marry a black person, a Moor. So Othello's marriage to Desdemona also shows his status, because at this point, marriages were contracted based on class. You marry within your class. So Othello is highly respected and well admired to marry Desdemona, a fair, virtuous woman. Okay? So that set the rank. Those things. He communes with the leaders of Venice. It's so important to them that when there is a war with the Turks, then they invite him because they want to send him to Cyprus, because he knows Cyprus very well, the terrain. They want to send him there. Okay? All these Othello has weakness. Othello has a weakness, and what is Othello's weakness? He is given to jealousy. He's given to jealousy. He has high temper. He trusts people too much without scrutinizing them. In other words, he's naive in matters of choosing who to trust. He's naive in the matters of choosing who to trust. This is why he trusts Iago, who hates him but pretends to love Othello. And because Iago succeeds in making him jealous, Iago is able to destroy him through that jealousy. So, Othello is a tragedy because it dramatizes the fall of Othello the more. The subject matter of Othello is the fall of a hero, Othello, through the character flaw of jealousy and lack of discernment. And lack of discernment. Discernment. Okay? So the play is organized in 5 acts, as it is with most of Shakespeare's plays. Organized in 5 acts. So Othello's fall is signified by his losing his position, losing his wife, losing his position because he strangles his wife. He suffocates his wife. Let's put it that way. He suffocates his wife, Desdemona, when he does not have all the facts that Desdemona is unfaithful with Cassio, as Iago leads him to believe. He kills her for nothing, loses his title when the truth is revealed, and because he cannot live to face the consequences of his action, he kills himself. So this is the tragedy of Othello. A man so admired, so well respected, but ends up destroying himself because of the weakness in his moral constitution, which is jealousy, lack of discernment, trusting the wrong person, or not examining his relationship, not acting based on evidence. That's how Othello destroys himself. Because he should know that he lives in a white society and might not be completely loved. They might need him for his services, for his military services. And most people might love him, but there might be some who might not. So he ought to be more careful. So the story begins with Iago and Roderigo discussing Othello's marriage to Desdemona. They also discuss how Othello chose Cassio over Iago in the appointment to the position of lieutenant. Iago wanted to be Othello's lieutenant and even sent some people to go and recommend him to Othello. But at the end of the day, Othello chose Cassio instead of Iago. So this makes Iago angry inwardly with Othello and promises within himself to have his revenge. And then on the other hand, you have Roderigo. Roderigo has a problem with Othello because Othello marries Desdemona. Othello marries Desdemona that Roderigo, wanted to marry. Okay? Wanted to marry. And the father Brabantio had told Roderigo, "You cannot marry my daughter." Because at this time in human history, marriage consent, parental consent, was of utmost importance for any marriage to take place. No matter how much the daughter loves the man, if the father says no, there's nothing you can do. Because the daughter is the property of the father. Okay? That is why in A Midsummer Night's Dream, you could see how Jews approaches the Duke to complain that his daughter has refused to marry the man he recommended for her. That's how important parental consent is in the area of marriage, in the context of the play, and the time, the setting of the play. So, that explains why Roderigo cannot marry Desdemona, because the father, Brabantio, will not give his consent. Okay? And so both of them are aggrieved. So these two aggrieved parties, Roderigo and Othello, meet, right? And in their conversation, we could see how the two join together to hate Othello. Iago hates Othello because he did not give him the position of lieutenant. And Roderigo hates Othello because he marries Desdemona that he wanted to marry. Okay? And so they decided to cause a problem for Othello. They decided they must cause a problem for Othello by informing Brabantio that his daughter had secretly been married to Othello. And that is exactly what they do in the first scene of the play. It is in the evening, at night. And so they wake up Brabantio and inform him of what has happened. Iago refuses to reveal his identity, but Brabantio recognizes Roderigo's voice. So they inform Brabantio that his daughter has been married by Othello, whom they describe with racist terms. Describe with what? Racist terms. When we read the play, you see the language that he used in describing Othello is racist. All right? The language they use in describing Othello is racist. They call him Barbary horse. Okay? Now, when Brabantio confirms that his daughter could not be found around the house, he decides to confront Othello. By this time, Iago has disappeared because he does not want to be seen, to be the one who caused the problem. The character of Iago is very important in this play. And when you read the play, you must understand how dubious his characterization is. Because at the end of the day, he does not only use Othello, he also uses Roderigo. He plays everybody against themselves, just for his selfish interest. For instance, he collects all of Roderigo's money without delivering on the promise he made to the man. So in the company of soldiers, Brabantio decides to storm Othello's house to arrest him for stealing his daughter. Now, Iago has already run back to Othello and pretends as if he didn't do anything. So when the scene shifts to where Othello is, we also realize that the Duke is looking for Othello because of the war being expected at Cyprus. The Duke is already looking for Othello because of the war that is being expected at Cyprus. So you could see that at the Senate, they are receiving war intelligence. At the Senate, they are receiving war intelligence because the enemy troops, the Turks, are trying to play on the intelligence of the Phoenicians by trying to act like they are visiting two places at the same time, two different locations at the same time. And so it keeps the senators in Venice thinking where exactly they want to go. It's only at the end that they realize that they want to go to Cyprus. That's their target, where they want to take because of the importance of the location. So Othello is sent for. There's a delegation from the Duke telling Othello that they have been looking for him, that the Duke wants him at the Senate. And immediately after that, Brabantio arrives with his mob, with his soldiers, to arrest Othello, accusing him of stealing his daughter through foul means. So Othello appeals to the fact that Brabantio cannot arrest him because the king has sent for him. And Brabantio says that the Duke is his brother and would also like to listen to the wrong that Othello has done to him. So they decide to go to the Senate. So the scene moves to the Senate. One of the issues presented at the Senate is the perceived wrong that Othello has done to Brabantio by stealing Desdemona from him. Okay? So the man accuses Othello before the Duke of using charms, magic, to take his daughter, saying that in her right senses, Desdemona could not marry the black Othello. Othello denies the charges and explains why Desdemona fell in love with him. That he used conventional, civilized methods in wooing Desdemona and not charms and magic. And that Desdemona should be brought to give testimony herself that this is exactly what happened. So that if she does not say so, then he should be punished the best way the senators find fit. And while Desdemona is being sent for, Othello explains how he was able to win Desdemona's love. He used the stories of his adventures during war in distant lands. When he tells Desdemona these stories, Desdemona would like them and would want him to tell the stories again and again. And that was how she fell in love with him. By sympathizing with him, by admiring his courage, and all of that. When Desdemona arrives at the Senate, she confirms to the senators that she has actually married Othello willingly, by her own consent, asked forgiveness from the father. Of course, the mother is late, because the man's mother is not alive at this moment. And once this is confirmed, Brabantio has no choice than to relinquish the daughter to Othello, because he has already made the promise to do so. And all that the Duke has to do is to bless the marriage, seal the marriage. And then attention is now turned to the important matters of state, which is the war at Cyprus. By now, they have realized that the Turkish troops are heading to Cyprus, another part of Venice, another island of Venice, to seize the place. So they now have to send Othello, who is newly married, to go there and secure Cyprus. Okay? So Othello has to leave Desdemona in the hands of Iago, whom he calls honest at this moment in the play, which is irony, or even dramatic irony, because the readers know by this time that Iago hates Othello, but Othello does not know. And so he calls Iago honest, somebody that can be trusted. And so you could see how he trusts him with his jewel, his wife, the most valuable thing that he has. It's entrusted to Iago to bring to him at a slower and more convenient time, while he heads to Cyprus to secure the city. You know, because literature teaches life, there are lessons for us to learn from this story of Iago and Othello. So Othello goes to Cyprus, and the scene of the play moves to Cyprus, and the play will be set in Cyprus throughout, from the beginning, from now to the end. The play will now be set in Cyprus, no longer at Venice. So the scene of the play moves to Cyprus, right? So at Cyprus, we have Montano and some other gentlemen discussing the weather. And we get to know that the storm was so strong that it destroyed the ships of the enemy, the Turks. The Turkish ships were destroyed by the storm. All right? And this, for me, alludes to an event that happened in Elizabethan England, which was the destruction of the Spanish Armada. Right? The destruction of the Turkish fleet, the Turkish ships. When I say fleet, fleet is a collection of ships, warships. Right? So the destruction of the Turkish fleet alludes, it's a historical allusion, it alludes to the destruction of the Spanish Armada during the reign of Queen Elizabeth I, when Spain sent warships to England, but England did not have to fight the war. Right? The storm destroyed the ship. That's historical allusion in the play. So Othello does not have to fight the war. So first you have the arrival of Iago with Desdemona and Emilia. Well, one thing that we did not include in our characterization yesterday was Emilia. Emilia. So you could do that now. After Desdemona, you should have Emilia. Emilia is the wife of Iago. Emilia is the wife of Iago. Okay? In fact, when when Othello was leaving for Cyprus, he asked Iago to let Desdemona stay with his wife, Emilia. And so, they're arriving now, Iago, Desdemona, and Emilia, arriving now at Cyprus. And then shortly after, Othello also arrived. Shortly after, Othello also arrives. And then we get to have more information that indeed the enemy ships have been destroyed and the war is done and dusted. So Othello declares a celebration. God declares a celebration. Mind you, Roderigo is also at Cyprus. Remember that once Brabantio handed over the daughter to Othello, both Roderigo and Iago were defeated, part one. They were defeated, part one. And so when Roderigo was dismayed and disappointed and wanted to drown himself, wanted to kill himself, Iago tells him to go and make money, put money in thy purse. Tells him, put money in thy purse. Follow the wars, meaning come to Cyprus. That he has schemes that will ensure that at the end of the day, Desdemona will be delivered unto him. Put money in thy purse. And so Roderigo is also in Cyprus. He's following the war, and he has his own hopes of still getting Desdemona. Without knowing that Othello simply wants to use him as part of his scheme. So Othello declares a holiday and a feast to celebrate the victory, the supernatural victory over the Turks, the enemy soldiers. And so that night was for feasting and celebration, and Iago has his scheme. Excuse me. So when Othello gives instructions that Cassio should watch over the place, and Cassio says he has given Iago instructions on what to do, how to watch the place, and departs to, retires to bed. Othello retires to bed with Desdemona. Iago decides to execute his plot. And what is the plot? The plot is to get Cassio to be drunk, because Cassio is not good with wine. Right? The plot is to get Cassio to be drunk, because Cassio is not good with wine. Once Cassio is drunk, he is usually disorderly and unmannerly. Iago knows this weakness of Cassio, and so decides to get him drunk. So that even when Cassio tells him that he has already taken the one cup that he usually manages, the one cup that he can cope with, Iago persuades him to have more, that there's no harm in having more wine. Right? And he's able to convince Cassio to add another cup. And after that, he sends Roderigo to go and look for Cassio's trouble. Because he knows that in that drunken moment, anything done with Cassio will be like a confrontation. Even if you tell him, advise him, he will take it as confrontation, as a fight. And that is actually what happens. It's as if Roderigo has gone to tell Cassio that he should go to do his watch duty. And he gets angry. Cassio gets angry and begins pursuing Roderigo around the place. Beats him up. And when Montano is the predecessor of Othello, as governor of Cyprus. Once Othello arrives, he takes over from him. So you can see that he's highly placed. When Montano intervenes in Cassio's beating of Roderigo, Cassio also fights Montano and wounds him. This is what Iago has been waiting for. This is what Iago has been waiting for. He asked Roderigo to go out and shout that there has been an emergency. There has been a mutiny. And then once that shout is done, the emergency bell is rung and all the island is awake, including Othello, who was asleep. And he comes out with Desdemona and asks what happens. Now, everything is up, so the dream departs from Cassio's eyes, from Cassio's head. But he cannot remember anything that has happened. So Iago is able to manipulate the story against him. Iago is able to manipulate the story against him. And at the end of the day, Othello suspends Cassio from his position as lieutenant. At the end of the day, Othello suspends Cassio from his position as lieutenant because of that disorderly behavior. Because I love thee, Cassio, but from now on, you are no longer my lieutenant. And that's what happened. So at that point, Cassio loses his reputation. At that point, Cassio loses his reputation and falls from grace. But of course, Iago is not done yet. Because what he really wants to do to not necessarily Iago. Iago is part of it because it was Iago that took his position. But the ultimate aim is to get Othello. So Iago now encourages Cassio to go and beg Desdemona to plead with Othello to give him back, to forgive him and to give him back the position of lieutenant. And he has a reason for that. He wants to use the moment that Cassio will be with Desdemona for the begging to suggest to Othello that Desdemona and Cassio are having an affair. To suggest, because it would not be true, and it is never true. Just suggestion, to insinuate that is what is going on. And that's exactly what he does. He uses suggestive language, insinuations, to get Othello to get the idea into Othello that his wife, Desdemona, is cheating with Cassio. And it does not really help too. That Desdemona keeps pestering Othello to restore Cassio. The more she pesters Othello, the more Othello thinks that she has something to do with Cassio. And then another thing that helps to seal this suspicion is the handkerchief. Everybody said the handkerchief. Yeah. The handkerchief was a love token from Othello to Desdemona. And before now, Iago has been asking his wife Emilia to steal the handkerchief and give it to him because he wants to use it to prove as a proof to Othello that Desdemona is cheating. So once this infection, this jealousy, this infection gets into Othello, he begins to act up towards Desdemona. So there's once that Desdemona wants to use that kerchief to wipe his face, Othello refuses the handkerchief and it drops on the ground. And Emilia picks it up and gives it to Iago. Iago then places the kerchief in Cassio's house. Cassio finds the kerchief and gives it to his mistress, Bianca. So on one of the days when they're having conversation, Bianca comes around and Othello sees the kerchief. And that seals the suspicion that they are cheating because it is made to look like as if Desdemona gave the kerchief to Cassio as a love gift. Okay? So from this moment onwards, Othello begins to plot how to destroy Desdemona. In fact, he decides that he's going to kill her. After all, that was the punishment. The husband was right. The husband had the right. In the Renaissance period, the husband had the right to dispose of his wife as he wants if she has committed a crime. Especially powerful husbands. All right? Somebody like Henry VIII executed some of his wives. Just beheaded them on suspicion of adultery. So that is what is depicted there. So Othello plans with Iago to kill Desdemona and Cassio. Cassio is assigned, Iago is assigned the responsibility of killing Cassio, and Othello will take care of Desdemona. And this is exactly what happens before the truth is unveiled. Because if Othello had even waited one moment before Emilia comes to tell him the truth, maybe he would have, Desdemona's life would have been saved. So he suffocates her the night that Iago planned to kill Cassio. Unfortunately, Cassio does not die and lives to tell the story. Now, when the truth comes out, that is Othello's tragedy. And he has no option than to kill himself. So this is the story of Othello in a nutshell. There are more details than this, but that is like the synopsis. So at the end of the day, Othello loses his position, and his position is given to Cassio. Position is given to Cassio. He was already asked to return to Venice for another assignment. And that even helped to fuel his anger against Cassio the more. Because at that point, he already believed that Cassio was his enemy. That Cassio was cheating with his wife. Okay? So he loses his position, loses his wife, and loses his life. That is Othello's tragedy. Just because of what? Jealousy. Trusting the wrong people. Okay. Let me take a brief moment and talk about the language of the play. The language of William Shakespeare's Othello, just like other plays of Shakespeare, is early modern English. Othello is written in early modern English. Early modern English. Early modern English, the English spoken in the Renaissance. Spoken during the Renaissance, right? The Renaissance, Elizabethan period. It is the language used in King James Version of the Bible. It is not easily understood by contemporary readers, but you can understand it based on context. However, certain words will have to be explained based on the context of those times. So the language is not going to be easy, but it is not completely opaque. It's not completely difficult. It could be understood. So when we are reading the play, note that we are reading the play for its language. We are reading the play for its language. The people who selected this text wants you to understand that there was a time when the English that you use today was a bit different from the way we are speaking it. All right? So the language of William Shakespeare's Othello is full of archaism. In today's language, we look at it as the predominant feature of Shakespeare's language is archaism. Archaism. That's the use of older words or the use of old words. Okay, there are words that you come across and you just don't understand, can't imagine what they mean in today's context or even then. That's archaism. Like thou, thy, methinks. Methinks, yeah. So those are the features, archaism. But you must approach the text with courage and boldness and understand it through the context of the story. And the way they said questions on Othello does not also help, because it means that you must understand every line in the story, every word, every sentence. You must know who made a particular statement. You must know who the person was speaking to. You must know the scene, the setting of that scene. And you must know what certain words mean within the context of discussion, context of the language. That's how they said. If you study the past question, you will see exactly what I'm telling you. Which is why this Othello, if you want to answer those 10 questions correctly, you must make it like a Bible. In fact, there should be no moment that you are not studying each of these literature texts. That's how to overcome. I usually see most of you walk around, I don't see you with any literature text, and I wonder what you are doing. You have to be with your text all the time. That's how to be a student of literature. All that time that you probably use talking or doing any other thing, you will be reading your text, so that text will be a part of you. Not even to talk about this one that was written many years ago. None of us was born. Again, just like Lysistrata, William Shakespeare's Othello makes use of poetic drama, poetic verse, poetic language. William Shakespeare's Othello is written in verse. That's what I'm trying to tell you. The language is poetry. The language of the drama is poetry. Because it has meter. It's written mostly in blank verse. That's meter. Okay? The highly placed characters speak in poetry, speak in verse. The common characters Characters with lower station of life speak in prose. So that's what you need to understand. So the language has all the features of poetry. And when we'll be discussing the story, reading the story line by line, I will tell you the qualities of the language, the features of the language. There are also dramatic techniques too, dramatic elements too, like irony, dramatic irony, verbal irony, situational irony in the play. Some verses rhyme, some verses have rhyme scheme. All right? Most of the highly placed speakers speak in iambic pentameter. Meaning that's why the language is verse, it is measured. Each line is measured, has a number of syllables. We'll look at that when we're reading. We'll be reading. Iambic, in the sense that it is the stress distribution is on stress, stress, on stress, stress, on stress, stress. Pentameter, in the sense that each line is likely to have 10 syllables. That's 5 feet of on stress, stress. On stress, stress 1 in 5 places gives you pentameter. Okay? So, I think we'll have to end the class for today. Fix the class for tomorrow so that we can continue. We'll do the reading. We'll take the first act and then we read. Then take the second act, then we read till we get to Act 5. All right. See you guys.